What's up? Welcome to the Existential Stoic podcast. And today we have a special episode on quieting the mind. And this was actually suggested to us by a listener at Sean P. Ryan 15. So that's awesome. So hopefully this will help you out. I'm Dan, everybody.
Yeah,
Randy, what's up,
thank you,
Randy?
Sean. And as a
Yeah.
matter of fact, if you are listening, we are looking for episode ideas. So feel free to comment, email us, emails down in the show notes. Let us know what you'd like to hear. But what
You know,
is the topic for today? And what is the name of this podcast, anyways?
the Existential Stoic podcast. And you know what's funny? When you've done like 400 and some odd episodes and you've thought of every one, it gets hard sometimes. Depends on
Mhm.
the day. Yeah. And so
But
the
also,
episode,
it would be good to have it a back and forth type of thing. Like
yeah.
there are a few people who listen to the podcast. So
Yeah.
what burning concerns and
And
questions
if
do
we
you
could
have?
help more, I'd love to help more. That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, so today's episode is on quieting the mind. And specifically, he was interested in like the negative, like thought, the inner dialogue that we have, which, dude, I can totally relate because I do this I still, and it's weird because like even when you know you do it, and even when you're aware you're doing it, it's hard to reel it back, which I find really weird. Like, like the other day, this happened like last week. I was tired and it was like probably like 6 o'clock. I didn't do much work that day. And I was like, I just had started having this thought, like, I'm never gonna get to the goals I want to get to. I'm gonna fail, this and that. This is too hard. It's never gonna work. And it's like really funny how that spiral is just like so quick from like, feeling relatively okay to like really depressed or anxious or worried.
Isn't it funny? It can be like one event happens and then you just overgeneralize it. Like somebody will cut you off in traffic and you'll be like, it's always freaking happen. I
Yeah.
can't, what's the future? What the world's coming? It always
Dude, it
happens.
doesn't have to be
Yeah,
somebody cutting me off. It can be like I didn't sleep enough or I missed lunch.
yeah, right. Or I've been awake for too long. Yeah. But it's an interesting one too, because once your mind starts going, it's really difficult to stop. And it's what they say, what you resist persists. So like if you are trying to quiet your mind, I mean, this was my thought when how to quiet the mind, you can't.
No,
That's my initial answer. You can't quiet your mind. So
no.
it's kind of like the a lot of the Buddhists will give this analogy of like if you have a glass of muddy water, how do you get clear water? And the only way to do it that I know of, or at least this is what they say, is to let it settle. So you just let it sit there. And unfortunately, when we have all this stuff going on in our mind, it's very uncomfortable. We want it to be different than what it is right now. And so we push against it. We try and do all these things. I mean, my personal opinion is when this stuff is going on in my mind, it's like the worst time to meditate. And that's like when everybody says you should meditate. And I'm like, no, no, that's just like trying to quiet my mind because my mind's just going to be going all over
I
the
don't
place.
know. Oh, I would say I do meditate sometimes when that happens. It is not easy. But like,
Mm-mm.
I think that goes to what they were saying though, right? Because like part of it is like if you have the muddy glass of water, right, and you want it to come clear and letting it settle, you're letting it go, right? You're not messing with it. You're not touching it. You're not attaching to it. And I think if you can get to and it's hard, obviously, when you're in a bad mood, but if you can get to that point of meditation where you can let those thoughts go and not latch onto them, that can be wildly helpful and can be very relaxing. But the problem with meditation
Definitely.
is it's not a recommendation for somebody who hasn't done it before. And a
Right.
lot, actually, because it's not easy and it's more frustrating
Because
than anything at
because
first.
probably the best meditation you're going to get while you're having all these thoughts is just noting that you're thinking,
Yeah.
like noting that the thoughts are there. That's pretty much the best you're going to get with this meditation. But
Yeah.
there are actually a couple techniques that I have found as of recent that I have found super helpful when I'm like really frustrated, when my mind's going a mile a
Let's
minute.
hear it.
So first is expressive writing. So we did this with The Artist's Way. There's also a book, Expressive Writing. It's also mentioned in a whole bunch of these like psychosomatic pain things that I did. I just take a sheet of printer paper, clean, like blank paper,
Something you can
and
throw
I
out,
just
basically, right?
yeah, exactly. And
Yeah.
so I just start writing both sides of it and like all the stuff, like I feel this way, I'm angry about this jerk, whatever, everything. Just write it all out front and back, and then I just fold it, rip it up, and that's it. And if there's still more, like it's crazy because after I do that, oftentimes I'll feel myself like taking a deeper breath and just being like, ah. It's crazy how cathartic it is.
Well, it gets it
Um,
out there, though. It's like if there is. I know it sounds like cheesy and corny, but there is something about like putting things down in the real concrete world that somehow like can let you let go of them a little bit. That's very helpful. And I know I agree with you. I do that a lot too. Like I'll do that in my journals actually. I just do it. But yeah, just writing down like stream of consciousness almost, but trying to kind of examine the thoughts that you're having. Because I think one of the problems is when we're having that like negative inner monologue is it's all inside and there's no second party to converse with. And you can do that with pen and paper. It doesn't have to be another person. But like when it's all inside, it's like your mind can just go crazy, right, with your imagination. But when you write it down, you can start to also like think about the stuff a little bit, right? Like and like see how kind of ridiculous it is sometimes. Because it's like, like the failure stuff is so funny because it's like, why all of a sudden right now at 8:30 at night or whatever, right? Am I suddenly thinking I'm going to be a failure when like I didn't feel that way the last week? But
And the
it's
crazy
like,
thing is, it's so convincing when it comes up.
oh
Like,
yeah.
if you examine it at another time, you'd be like, what was I thinking? But like when it comes up, you're like convinced. It's just crazy.
It's weird how, well, our thoughts are our reality, right? I mean, it's like they literally do and make our world what it is. So, and it's hard because it's our perspective. It's not somebody telling us. Like if somebody tells me like you're not going to make it in this or whatever, it's like I can brush it off because I'm also my own person, right? They're separate outside. But when it's you, it's a lot different and a lot harder. I also
Yeah.
like, that in the Feeling Great book, I do like because he mentions it a lot, and I think it's a good one we talked about before. But like thinking about how you would talk to yourself if it was your friend, not
Mhm.
yourself. Because like all of us do this, right? We all have these inner monologues that are like really negative, really mean, and like abusive in a lot of ways. And we would never talk that way to somebody we love, a friend, even a stranger, we probably wouldn't talk that way. So asking yourself, like, if this was like my best friend or if this was my loved one or whatever, what would I say if they came to me with the exact same problem, with the exact same issue? Would I be like, yeah, you're definitely a failure or this or that, or like, or would it be a lot different and more understanding, right? And more caring? And that can be very helpful too, to just like help you see how kind of absurd you're being, right? How ridiculous your thoughts are right now.
Yeah, it's crazy how much the double standard happens because I literally just this week had something happen to me that happened to one of my friends like a year or two ago, and the advice that I gave him was exactly what you would give a friend in that thing. But when it happened to me, it was like, how could you possibly do this? What is wrong with you? And I was sitting there like feeling miserable about myself and looking back, and I'm like, the same thing literally just happened to him 2 years ago. And this is what I told him, and this is what I'm telling me. How about just trying to tell me this?
But
Yeah.
I'm different. I'm
Yeah, I
special,
know, right?
right? It should have been
But that
different for
brings,
me. Yeah,
yeah,
go
but
ahead.
also from feeling good is where one of the other techniques. So I do think that right when you have like your mind racing, I think it's really important to write down your thoughts. And so one of the things that David Burns teaches you in those books is that it's good to write your thoughts down and then identify the distortions in the thoughts. So he goes through a bunch of different distortions in there, like all or nothing thinking that things are either black or white, overgeneralization, thinking if it's going to happen once, it'll happen over and over again, minimization, magnification, kind of like looking through the one side of a magnifying glass. So like a whole bunch of different generalizations, labeling, self-blame, all these different things. And so what I'll do is when I'm having a bunch of nasty thoughts going through my head, I'll write them down. And sometimes when I try and do that, they disappear because that's like, like it'll
Yeah.
be all this stuff, and then I'll be like, okay, what are the thoughts? And I'll be like, they just disappear. So I was like, so at that point, it's like, okay, what would a person in this situation I'm going through right now be thinking? And that's helpful to kind of visualize it that
Hmm.
way. And so I just write down the thoughts. And he has a whole daily mood log that you can follow with this, which is super helpful. I try and do those daily-ish and
More or less daily.
more or less daily. Yeah, daily-ish. And but it's really helpful because it guides you through this. And so for each thought, you just look at the thought and you identify the distortions and you just go through the list of 10 distortions and you say, is it this one? Is it this one? And it could be one of them, it could be all of them, it could be somewhere in between. And then once you identify the distortions, all that tells you is that there's an error in your thinking. Like,
Yeah. It's
for
a logical
example,
fallacy, right? Like,
yeah, for
yeah,
example, all or nothing thinking. Like, I screwed this up. That means that I'm a complete failure. And like, so there's some labeling in there saying that you're a complete failure, but
yeah.
saying that like because you got this one thing wrong, you're like perfectionism is one of those things where you're like,
Oh
if I
yeah.
don't do 100%, I'm a failure. And it's like, well, it's not one or the other. There's definitely a scale. in between that.
There
And
always
so
is.
like,
Yeah.
yeah, so identifying that is really helpful. And then the last part is writing a new thought that kind of puts a lie to the old thought, something that's 100% true and that you believe. And so that can be a bit tricky. That takes a bit more work, but it's very helpful when your mind's racing because it's racing because you're trying to digest these thoughts and you're trying and you just keep getting caught in this mind loop because your mind is just chasing its own tail. And
Yeah.
until you write them down, you'll just keep chasing your tail. But once you write them down, then they're like concrete, they're there, you can look at them, and then you can combat them.
I also like too, this is also because I was recently, you got me that book, it's Feeling Great. So I was reading it
Hmm.
recently, so it's on my mind. But this is also from that, but it's another really good one, which I really liked, which was asking yourself, like, what do these thoughts say about my core values? And I think
Ooh.
that's an interesting one because a lot of us, I think a lot of us struggle because we have these unrealistic expectations that we place on ourselves, either from like growing up or from like the world, right? Like we're like, we see all these examples of grinding and success and like we think we have to be that, but like we never see like the whole life, right? And I like when he talks about, like when you're having these thoughts, like ask yourself like what do they say about like what I actually my core values are? Like if you're like I'm a failure because I failed this one thing, it's like, well, you want to do really well. You want to
Yeah,
be
you have high
successful, right?
standards.
Yeah, you have high
Yeah.
standards. Those are good qualities. You're just kind of like way overdoing it, right? Right?
Hmm.
And so like
Yeah.
it helps you kind of see a little bit of the positive that still exists within you and it helps you identify like what matters to you. And then that
Hmm.
can also be a route to kind of helping you think through these things and get out of this way of thinking, which is really helpful too.
Yeah, those are awesome, kind of identifying what's good about whatever you're going through because we're so often sold this lie that there's something wrong with us. Like if we're depressed or if we're anxious, we're like, well, there's something wrong with me. I have a medical condition. I need
I should
drugs in
be
order to get
happy
over this. Yeah.
24/7.
Yeah. And it's like, well, maybe it's saying something good about you. Like maybe
Yeah.
you're depressed about this thing because you've tried a whole bunch of times and you don't want to, get hopeful again and then have it turn out to be terrible. Or like,
Yeah.
there could be any number of reasons. So like there's a whole bunch of good stuff to it. And also it's like they say every blessing has a burden. Like all these people that we idolize, I it's very um it's a good practice to meet these people in real life because you find out that they're just as flawed or more likely even more flawed than regular people.
Oh
And so,
yeah.
like, even though they have this one thing that's spectacular, usually their bank balance, there's a whole bunch of other stuff that is not spectacular about them. And it's easy to glance over that and not even notice it.
Well, it's also easy to salivate over the bank balance because it's an easy thing to quantify, right?
Hmm.
But it's hard to quantify someone's loving relationship and how much value that has to their life, or the
Yeah.
fact that someone has hobbies and enjoys their day. It's like hard to quantify like a whole life. And I think that's why we tend to focus on that, but it's also such a negative thing, right? But it's also, I think, a source of so much of our inner turmoil and negative thoughts and all of that. Like we're not going to make it, you know?
Yeah. So here's another CBT type technique that I've found that's very helpful for negative thoughts, for feeling bad, for racing mind and everything like that. I find a lot of times it comes just because I need to like grieve or cry or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Let out
You're
let out
holding
the
emotions in
emotion.
of some sort. Yeah.
Yeah. And so one thing that I'll do is I'll just put on some like white noise on the TV and just turn that up really loud so nobody can hear anything. And then I'll put on some headphones with some sad songs on them and I'll just cry for usually like 10, 15 minutes. Just let it out. And it's crazy how cathartic it is. Like
Well, they always
and
say it
it's
is because it
not,
releases, when you do that, it actually releases hormones and stuff. And there's like biochemical things happening that actually do make you feel better. And there's
oh,
also
dude,
the effort and all the energy involved in it. It's a big physical act. Like, you don't think of it, but it
I
is.
feel it because like I break out in sweat from like
It's a
releasing
lot, yeah.
whatever's trapped up in me, and it's crazy. And what else did I want to say about it? But oh yeah, so like it's not just like crying like woe is me. It's like crying that I care so much about myself that I'm actually a little bit sad that I'm suffering.
Yeah. And
And so
everybody, I
that's
mean,
like
yeah,
that's like a really nice way to do it because
I like that.
e- if you can care enough about like we get I think I mentioned this a while ago, but like we get trapped in this mind loop where we want to achieve something, to be, to do, to have, whatever it is. We have this vision that we want. And we say, once I get there, I'm going to love myself. Everything will be great. But until I get there, I'm just going to whip the shit out of myself. I'm going to hate myself until I get there. I'm going to hate myself until I love myself. And it's like the biggest fallacy ever because you'll never be able to love yourself if you just
Yeah.
practice hating yourself your whole life.
Well, not to mention too, it's funny that we have this idea in our heads that the only way to motivate ourselves enough to get those things is to hate ourselves, which is really ridiculous too, because it's also counterproductive. It doesn't help us move forward. It doesn't help us achieve our goals faster. It doesn't help us, it wastes more time than it actually, adds to our getting work done or anything. It causes a lot of stress. If you think about it, it's really silly, and yet we do it all the time.
Mhm. Yeah, because we think we have to do stuff faster than humanly possible.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny. And I would add too that's funny, like this is something I've been working on, and it's funny that when he mentioned this as a possible episode topic, I was laughing because I've been thinking about this a lot because I've been working on it for a long, like for years now. Really, since we started doing this, I've been trying to work on this. And like I feel like I'm getting a lot better at it in the sense that like when it happens, one thing I like to do now too is like trying to step back when it does happen. So this did happen to me last week, I was mentioning. And what I actually did was like when I caught myself doing it, which took a minute, but when I did catch myself, I stepped back and I was like, wait a minute, like what's going on actually in my life? And I was like, well, I'm happy about this. This is going well. Happy about this. I was like, oh, okay. So this stuff's just taking more time than I thought or than I wanted or than I hoped or whatever. But it's still gonna happen. It's not like it's like impossible just because like I had a bad evening or something. And that's been really helpful. It doesn't always work, but.
Yeah,
And I think also
yeah,
we
but
just, oh, go ahead.
I was going to say being specific about it. Like, what's
Yeah,
causing the issue? Instead of just like, my life is terrible, what specifically about your life is terrible? And
yeah.
then, is it something you can live with or is it something you want to change? Because if it's something you want to change, there's a good chance you might be able to make it a little bit better. Maybe not 100% better, but
Well, that's the
it's not all
important
or
thing too,
nothing.
right? If it is something, if you really do get specific and it is something you really do want to change, you have the power to start making changes. And so, like, it is possible to change our lives, right? And so I
Yeah.
think that's really funny because I think a lot of this also comes from that stuckness we get in, that either fear or inability or whatever that we're afraid of moving on from whatever crappy position we're in. And so like it's hard to kind of get ourselves out of it.
So like I listen to his podcast a lot, the Feeling Good podcast. And one of the techniques that he has for combating negative thoughts is called the feared fantasy. So like in this scenario, basically like whatever you fear is going to happen actually happens and in like a terrible, terrible, like the worst possible scenario. So like let's say you want to like start becoming more social again and talking with people like freely, but you're afraid that if you say something to somebody, they're gonna be like, "Oh, what's wrong with you? What are you, a pervert? You freaking weirdo!" And so, like, the feared fantasy is you just they just have that voice. So, like, you go and say hi to
Yeah.
somebody, and they're like, "Ew, you fucking sick! Oh, what's wrong with you? You pervert! Get away from me!" And like he would just talk back to these thoughts. He'd be like, "Wow, yeah, I could see how you say that. I mean, that concerns me too sometimes, but like." What specifically is it about me that's like so perverted and sick? And it's like nothing. It's just your whole vibe. Like, ew, how could you talk with someone in public? And it's like, well, I mean, that must be really tricky if like nobody in public can talk with you or else they're a sicko or And so you start
Yeah.
combating these like thoughts. It's really interesting because a lot of these like worst case scenarios, feared things, you find out that like this imagined person that you have or imagined scenario is actually the kind of the weird thing.
Yeah, oh yeah, totally, right? And it's like, well, it's similar to like I think like the Stoic idea of like that negative visualization, right? You imagine the bad thing happening so many times that it's just like, how would you react? Okay, the first time might be horrible, whatever, it might really get your emotions going, but the 10th, the
Hmm.
100th, the 1,000th, and the thing we forget is like, well, we should know because the inner monologue proves it, right? The imagination's super powerful. So really thinking these things through can help you deal with that stuff too.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we addressed overthinking. We address. Oh, wait, there's a couple other like very, very easy
Yeah.
things for overthinking. Exercise,
Oh yeah. Yeah.
getting outside. Like those are two keys for overthinking. Those help so much. Like for
Well,
for
when it's the
me,
negative, I
like
would say when it's the
yeah.
negative inner monologue too, like especially doing something either outside or a hobby or exercise where like it takes enough physical energy and effort that it's hard to think. So you
Yeah.
can, because it might be hard at first to get into it, but you will get into it. And then that'll help you give yourself a break from berating yourself.
Yeah, like for me, and it could just be like the macho masculine energy type of thing, but lifting heavy weights with some heavy metal music on it or hitting a heavy punching bag, like those things just really like get it all out because I just leave it right there. And then by the time you work it out, like I've heard this thing about kind of breaking horses, like when they have wild horses, that one of the techniques that they use to kind of get the horse uh, to be not so scared of people anymore is they just like they basically have the horse in a little circular corral, and so it can run around in circles, and they just kind of raise their arms behind the horse and they walk kind of slowly just right behind it, you know? And so
Oh, so they can
it
see
runs
it, I
itself
guess.
tired.
They
Yeah,
can
so
see the person.
they see you person, you look like a predator
Yeah.
and they just run the horse until they see, you know, the horse sweating and getting tired, and then they just stand there and they don't look at the horse and they let the horse come up to it because horses are prey animals and they're used to just like they're used to like being with other animals, but if you look directly at a horse, especially with eyes in the front of your head, that's what a predator does.
Yeah,
And so if
yeah.
you don't look at the horse and you just ignore it, once it's tired, it'll come over to you and come and like put its head on your shoulder.
That makes
And then
sense
all of a
too,
sudden
right?
you got a best buddy.
And you're also showing to the horse, right, that you're not a threat.
Yep.
Like it thought you were a threat, but really you're not, and you're not going to
Yeah.
attack it, right? And
And
so
you
its
get rid of
fears
all
are
that
not
anxious
realized.
energy. Yeah,
Yeah,
you get rid of all that anxious energy, and then horses naturally are herd animals. So they want to be with other creatures. So like you're in this corral and you're the only other thing there and you're not looking at it, so you must not be a predator. You must
yeah,
be one of the tribe. And so they just come over and they put their head on your shoulder and you
yeah.
got a new buddy.
The other thing I would add too is I think we need to practice more self-compassion and realize that, like I think a lot of these negative thoughts, a lot of this inner monologue that we have that's so negative, it comes from so many different things. I think some of it's probably evolutionary, right? Like,
Consumerism, maybe,
consumerism.
commercials.
Yeah, right. I mean, the outside world, we have so much
You're a
information.
terrible person. Buy a
Yeah,
Lexus, you'll be a better person.
you'll be happy. Just drink
Yeah.
Pepsi, And then like you have how you were raised, all that stuff. So many things in our lives, plus like evolution. So we have all these like biochemical processes that just happen at times, and we don't really have control over them. I mean, there's so much going on. So just being more compassionate with yourself and practicing that can be really helpful. Like if you see yourself doing it, just stop and be like, you know. Would I ever say this to anybody else in the world? If not, take a step back, breathe,
Yeah.
and just kind of, I think that's really helpful sometimes.
And there's such this vibe, like this selfishness vibe in like the woke culture where it's like, how dare you think about yourself instead of all the other poor
How
starving
could you
people in the
not
world?
be
And it's like,
selfish? That makes no sense.
right, exactly. Like you need to take care of yourself first. And I think it's worth saying because like it seems like everywhere where they're like, you need to like be super generous to other people. You need to care about all these other people. And it's like, no, take care of your own stuff first. Like if you got stuff, if your house is burning down, like take care of yourself first,
Yeah,
and then you can take care of the homeless people because you're going to be homeless too if you don't take care of yourself.
no, exactly. And the more you take care of yourself, the more you enable yourself to help other people. That's exactly right. The other thing I would add too is I know there's certain things that would, if I'm driving a lot, I'm like, I'll listen to NPR sometimes. I can't listen to it usually during the week because it's all news. Like, so I know that stuff will make, even if I don't have a reaction right at the moment that I'm hearing it, it will
Hmm.
bother me later. So, I mean, keep
Yep.
that in mind too. I think sometimes like stepping back from the information flow, from the news, from social media, giving yourself a break can be so helpful because that stuff is meant to trigger you. It's all meant to rile your emotions because that's how they keep you watching and keep you engaged.
Hmm.
And like not positive emotions. None of them are positive. It's all negative because that's what keeps you
Yep.
coming back. So yeah, that's a really good one too.
Definitely. Here's another one. Remembering that, ideally you're going to have 5 good days and 2 bad days in a week. Because
Right?
I was under the illusion
That
for the
every
longest
second
time
of
that you're
every day
supposed
should
to
be
have seven
amazing.
good days. Yeah, you're supposed to have 7 good days. So anytime I had a bad day, it was an emergency because I wasn't living my best life, you know? And then I heard, probably in Feeling Good or one of the books that like, the goal is to get you to have 5 good days two bad days. If you're having more than that, they can give you like lithium or something like that, and that'll bring your mood back down.
Yeah.
If you're having too many bad days, you can start doing the exercises and feeling good or feeling great and start feeling better. But it's that was really helpful because now I have bad days and it's just a bad day. It's just like, well, I'll be like, yeah, you know what? I did have a few good days, so I guess it's just time.
That is actually super helpful because I've been doing that a lot recently too, like letting myself have a bad day too, right? And just
Hmm.
it's just a bad day. Like it's totally okay. That can happen.
But
That's not a
you know
big
what
deal.
sucks about it is that like, so I've been trying to like when I'm having these bad days, I'd be like, I try and remind myself, I'm like, well, this is an awesome period to just sit at home and play video games or like
Yeah.
read or
Now you want to have bad days all the time, so you can just hang
no,
out.
not,
Another
not
bad
that.
day, gonna play a
It's
game.
just, yeah, it's just like it's just more challenging to enjoy those things when I'm having a bad day.
Oh God, yeah,
You know,
yeah.
like reading a book, I'll be reading and it's hard to focus, or like I'll be playing a video game and I'll keep like re going over this thing that happened, and so like it's a bit more challenging. But I just try to remind myself like, hey, these are great times to just do those things.
Yeah, I think the last thing I'd say too, I guess, is just like everybody struggles with this. Like
Hmm.
I don't care who you are. There's nobody that doesn't struggle with this, I think. And
Since the beginning of time.
literally, yeah. Be compassionate to yourself and keep working at it because it gets better. And I know I've been working on this for like consciously working on this for like 5 years. It still happens, but it's gotten a lot more manageable and a lot better now when it does happen. And I think that's the important thing, right? And
Dude,
like,
yeah, even Jesus it happened to in the Garden of Gethsemane, like the night before he was supposed to die or be crucified or whatever. He was like, I need you guys to stay up and pray with me. And they kept falling asleep. And he's like, come on, guys, just stay up and pray with me. And they kept falling asleep and he got all pissed
come
off.
on,
And
I'm the side. What's
yeah,
going on?
I know, right? And so yeah, it happens to everybody.
It does.
Yeah.
Oh, there you have
Yeah.
it then.
Yeah,
Hope you
thank
guys
you
enjoyed.
so much for that recommendation. That was
Yeah,
an awesome recommendation. And if you guys have more ideas of episodes you'd like, questions you'd like answered, we would love to do episodes about them. So put them down in the comments. You can
yeah,
email us, it's in the show notes, and ask away because we would be more than happy to do
yeah.
episodes like this.
And we really hope that this helped too. It helps you
Mhm.
with that inner monologue. That would be great for everybody, right? So if you enjoyed this episode, check us out wherever you get your podcasts or on YouTube. We'll be back later as we do another episode. Until then, though, later, Andy.
Later, Danny.